Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. I am your host, Rudolph, joined as always by AJ Haefele. Today, we get to talk about Colorado Avalanche prospects. We've gone through the Avs last season. We've gone through their lineup and what it looks like they may lose, they may re-sign. Now it's time to talk about how they may fill out some of that roster when it comes to what they already have in the system. There are some obvious ones. There are some maybe not quite as obvious ones, but always an exciting time to see where the Avs can get some internal graduations. We can start with last season, where I guess you could make cases and say guys like Ryan Graves, Pavel Francouz graduated, but
sure,
they're not really prospects, are they?
No.
So I guess Cale Makar kind of, but everyone knew he was graduated when he played in the playoffs the year before.
Yep.
So there wasn't any true graduations, I would say, for the Avs over the past off season or over the past full season even. And there's some expectation that there's going to be at least one or two and maybe more than that in the coming year.
They're certainly going to have a chance to have more than that, depending on how they want to approach it, because they've got spots opening up, and they've got guys that can jump in and fill them. You know, two of the depth guys have already bolted: Kamenev to Russia and Barberio to Switzerland.
Yep,
those dudes are gone,
ain't coming back, and we'll see how they want to manage those things. As both of those guys were not everyday players.
Newhook is definitely not graduating.
No, that is not gonna happen. Newhook had already committed to another year in college. Of course, we'll see how that plays out. But
yeah, with college hockey announcing today that they will be delayed to start the year.
Yeah, despite he may not play in college hockey, but I don't think the next option is him playing in the NHL. Certainly. Yeah. So.
Even if something really weird were to happen and they were to sign him to an ELC, he would play in the AHL before he would play for the Avs.
Yep, 100%. And realistically, I don't even think that's super high in the list.
No,
you assess junior options or even potentially playing in other pro leagues. But
yeah, I think it would make sense for him to go to Halifax first.
Yep, for sure. The only reason Halifax is a question for Newhook is if he expects to play another year of college hockey, which he shouldn't.
Yeah, this should be with Newhook. We're talking he should be in the last year of whatever he's going to do, and they should be signing him to his ELC sometime in 20
or whatever. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yep. Sometime in the spring, they should be doing that.
Yep. So, while hype on Newhook is certainly warranted, not what today's show is about. AJ, right. Let's start from the back of the ice and work forward here. So let's start at the goaltending position.
Okay.
The only proper prospect that the Avs have inside the organization is Adam Werner. Yes, there's a lot of hype around Justus Annunen, but he's already committed to playing in Europe next season.
Yeah.
Not going to be someone that can reasonably graduate to the NHL this year.
Yeah, so the only goaltender prospect in North America.
Correct. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because Annunen is very much a prospect. Just
he's
not committed to Finland.
To graduate. Yeah, exactly. Going to do Trent Miner dirty like that, though. Technically in North America.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
I am.
Okay, all right. Not even beating around that bush. Just throwing down the gauntlet.
I just realistically, he has such a long way to go to even get the ELC, and this is why drafting CHL kids is kind of
you have to make quick decisions.
Yeah, where they've gotten, because if they had to make a decision on Werner after just 2 years, they might not have given him the ELC. They had time with him where they could, he had also gone through the draft once. when they picked him up. So he was a year older as well. And then they got to wait on him. And I think that was one of the reasons why we saw them trending more towards taking European goaltenders, was because they liked that they could draft them and then leave them be and just see how they developed. And you can get a more informed decision on what you're getting, because goaltenders are all over the place. They signed in pretty quickly. And he's spending the first year of his ZLC in Finland.
Yeah.
So even when they like a guy, they're comfortable letting him do his thing in Europe for a little while. Yeah, I'm not worrying about Minor, but with Werner, he has that like new car smell to him, right? As a prospect still.
The shine is still on him. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because he's had 1 year over here, but like that guy's already 23 years old.
Yep.
Like you think he is 2 full years older than Tyson Jost.
Yep. The Avs D-core has 3 players younger than Adam Werner on it, and next year could have 5 players
right
than Adam Werner on it.
So like all of this is just to say that, like, while Werner is still kind of new kid on the block, the timeline on making a decision on him is going to be a lot shorter.
Accelerated for sure.
Luke, don't even get us started on draft stuff. Rudo and I have already been DMing back and forth over the last couple of days about it.
Yep.
We don't even. We're very excited to start talking draft because we're draft guys. So
we gotta get there. We're stepping towards it. All right.
We're taking very logical steps to get into that conversation. We're using this entire week, to talk about the NHL roster and other options, and then we will be obviously switching heavily into draft starting next week.
You got to clean out your pantry before you can put new ingredients in it. So,
yep.
I don't know. It worked in my head.
I mean, it's true. In reality, you can't just cram stuff on top of stuff. You eventually run out of pantry space. So accurate. What's in the pantry right now, though, is Adam Werner, and that's where the conversation. Hey, he got 2 NHL games, and they couldn't have been. They were polar opposites. You had Pavel Francouz, I think, went down 31 seconds into that game in Winnipeg.
Had Adam Werner shutout. It was
Adam Werner got the shutout.
Yeah,
and technically didn't get the shutout, and it became the second team shutout in Avalanche history, which I was shocked by, that there have only been 2 of those.
Yeah, given how prone, especially in recent years, with guys like Varley, who you expect to go down at any moment.
Yeah.
That they couldn't pull out a shutout. But
I mean, you think about it, there have been more like multi-pitcher no-hitters in baseball than multi-goaltender shutouts for the Avs.
I mean, that's a little bit of a stretch.
It's true. Like we get a couple of multi-pitcher no-hitters every year. They also play 4,000 games.
The vast majority of games, they're not expecting your pitcher to complete either. But
true. I'm just saying, like, multi-goaltender shutouts are weird, and this one was especially cruel because Adam Werner, he faced every shot in that time that Francouz was in there. He didn't face any shots, and so I think the NHL should have given him the shutout. But whatever. Point is, Werner then played in Edmonton, gave up 6 goals, and got completely trashed, and that sucked.
Yeah, it was the other side of the coin, and not interesting, but honestly, that was pretty representative of his season as a whole, down in the AHL as well. It was pretty often either a great performance or an off night for him. There was not a ton of middling consistency from him.
Yeah, he had a very all or nothing. There would be nights where I would go to nope, don't know who that is. There would be nights where I would go to turn on the Eagles game and it would already be 4-0, and I'd be like, never mind.
With this one, click.
Yeah, like we're just gonna put it in the bin.
Yep.
Or like watch the first period, see how it got there, and be like, all right, cool. On with the rest of my day.
Yep.
So that's, obviously, like, he had a solid first year in North America with the Eagles. I think everybody felt pretty good about it. The numbers kind of dipped a little bit as the year went on, and Hunter Miska took more and more of the job from him. But again, you're okay with that.
He also battled some weird injury issues throughout parts of the season as well, so there was a little bit of weirdness going on, but still, 31 games, a .909 save percentage with a .292 goals against average. Decent for a first-year goalie in the AHL.
Yeah, it's respectable. It's something to build from. If he goes out and he repeats it, then you're not... Like I said, the timeline on him is going to be very short. If he goes out and he has the same exact season, you're probably not feeling like he's a serious NHL prospect for you.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of the conversation that you're moving into. We talked a little bit about the Avs goaltending over this week so far. Realistically, Werner is not a top 2 option for the Avs in the coming year.
Yeah. And until they make a move, we're going to continue to assume Grubauer and Francouz are the goaltenders.
Yeah.
We will talk about options and different things they could do, but until they make a move and we have these types of conversations, we're operating under the assumption that it's Grubauer and Francouz in Colorado.
Yeah. So with Grubauer and Francouz, they're the clear-cut 1 and 2 for the Avs. The step that Werner needs to make this year is to become the clear-cut number 3. Where he needs to earn the Avs' trust in the regards of they don't feel like they need to go out and get a Michael Hutchinson because they have Adam Werner.
Yeah.
And, perfect world, you never have to play your third-string goaltender, but...
Yeah. You know how that perfect world stuff goes.
Yeah. Never quite as perfect as you hope it to be. So, we'll see. Hutch may stick around. We've talked about how we would prefer Miska probably to kind of split starts with Werner in the AHL for the year. So Werner is maybe one of the least impactful guys I think that we're going to talk about on this show. So we can take our first period break there and talk about Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR, with 8 different types on tap down at the DNVR bar if you want to get it straight from the tap. Or, of course, you can find it at your local liquor store. Use the Breck Beer Locator online to find whichever type of beer you want. The Agave Wheat, the Avalanche Amber, the Hot Peak, the Strawberry Sky, dozens of other beers as well. If you like some specific type of beer, I guarantee you they have a type that you will like. And WGT Golf, the number 1 rated golf app out there, has over 20 million players around the world. And we here at DNVR have 3 clubhouses so far full of players playing. We have tournaments every single weekend, so be sure to jump in. Go to dnvrgolf.com to download and search for DNVR3 to join our 3rd clubhouse and get in on all of the action, whether it be our tournaments or just playing head-to-head at any time. Stroke play, match play, closest to the hole, you name it, you can play it on amazing true-to-life golf courses. Second period.
Oh my God.
Uh-oh.
Cap Friendly finally rolled over their rosters to this year or to next year.
So it doesn't have that extra that you just have to black out.
So nice. To look at Colorado's roster and see it as it accurately is now is just like, thank you. Now I can see how much cap space they actually have, and
do
like
a bunch of internal math that's not.
Yeah. I'm not like chopping guys off left and right to be like, okay, what are they actually sitting at here? Well, this is so nice. This is a good day. This is one of my favorite days of the year because it just makes my Cap Friendly life that much easier. Thank you, Cap Friendly.
All right, so sticking with the Eagles conversation, I suppose, as we move up to the Avs' potential defensive graduates, Connor Timmins. He played 2 NHL games at the start of the season, had a great camp, got sent back to the AHL, ended up coming back and even playing a couple games in this playoffs. From a player ability standpoint, we have said many times, we believe Connor Timmins is NHL ready.
Mm-hmm.
How does he get in the lineup? 1 and 2, even as we have this conversation, the massive caveat of is he even healthy?
Yeah, not knowing what's going on with Timmins, this is wow.
Yep.
Not knowing what's going on with Timmins' health makes it really tough to project exactly what they want to do and how comfortable they are. Kind of creating a roster spot for him, because right now they've got 4 guys under contract.
Yep.
With Johnson, Girard, Cole, and Makar. Barbario's obviously gone. Graves and Zadorov are RFAs. Connaughton's a UFA. So they could just, if they wanted to just let, obviously Barbs is gone. If they wanted to let Connaughton go, and they bring back both Graves and Zadorov,
that's starting 6.
Yeah, then you've got 6, and you're either looking for a 7th or an 8th.
Yep.
You don't really want. You don't really want the Timmins or Byram jobs to be 7th that rotational guy.
Right. You want to play them most nights, I think. With
you don't mind those guys getting scratched. That's going to happen.
Yeah, right. They're the expected starter, with Ryan Graves being the 7th rotational guy who rotates in when they need a night off.
Yeah.
If you're going to graduate them.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty unique situation here. If we assume Timmins is healthy for a second.
Or that he will be by the start of the season.
Sure. Whichever. Can the Avs reasonably graduate 2 defensemen in the same season? Because Bowen Byram is very much going to be pushing for a very similar role to what Connor Timmins is.
Right. The question has always been, you're balancing this youth that you have, that you love, and you love these guys and you love their future and their upside. And this is not like, oh, Connor Timmins is going to be he's going to be a decent 3rd pairing guy, like Bowen Byram can fill this really niche, 15-minute a night. Right? These are 2 guys that you are expecting to be a huge part of your future.
Top 4 defensemen for
right. And this is your response. These guys are your response to what Nashville built out.
Yep.
You're hoping that you're getting something similar, where you have this just killer top 4.
Yeah. That just
teams. That's the upside here. That's the hope, is that, especially, Byram and Makar, obviously you're hoping they become the pair, just tip top of the NHL pairing. A Werenski Jones, a Muzzin Doughty. Just rock solid.
Yep. Can throw out there against anyone.
Top pairing.
Yep.
You're not playing cute little matchup games.
Yeah. It just makes life so much easier when you can say, all right, Byram, Makar, just take your shift every other shift, basically.
Yeah. And then you're hoping that Girard and Timmins become more of your defensive guys.
Yep, exactly.
And then after that, you're like, okay, well, we'll find 3rd pairing guys. But the question is 2 of those guys, Timmins has 4 NHL games played and an injury history. Byram's still a teenager. What are you really a team that's pushing aggressively to be in Stanley Cup contention? Are you really going to turn over the roster to 2 kids like that? And I think conventional wisdom is just no.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to do it
eventually.
I think they have to give one of them a real opportunity. Which one? You know what? I probably lean Byram, but if you come into camp and whoever wins the job, I'd be pretty comfortable with that.
Well, the problem is in the 2 camps that I've seen, Timmins has outplayed Byram by a country mile.
A lot.
One of them has looked like he's and Timmins outplayed all those dudes, and there was a reason that Jared Bednar was
games, yeah.
screw it. We're putting him in. Our season's on the line. He's going in. It's just a matter of what's the best way to balance these weird dev cycles, because you have like not all things are created equally, not all opportunities are created equally here, because
Byram is playing the NHL or go spend another year in juniors.
Yeah. And like the WHL, another year in the WHL doesn't hurt Bowen Byram in any way. It just doesn't help him. There isn't anything going on with Bowen Byram in the WHL. It hadn't already been accomplished. You know, the biggest thing there with him, if he were to go back to the WHL, it's safe. It's a safe option. You're not worried about him getting hurt like if he was, say, in the AHL and he's going up against, you know, there's some goon out there on an AHL tryout contract trying to win a job. He goes and smokes somebody, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's your concern in the AHL. You're not worried about that in the WHL. That guy, he's fine in that league. He'll be perfectly fine in that league again if he has to go back there. The NHL, if he's going to be in the NHL, you want him to play.
Yeah.
You want to see what he has. You've got 9 games to see what he has. You want to at least give him that and see how it goes. Like you want to say, hey, those first couple games probably aren't going to be great, but you want to see if he takes off. You want to see if he really takes to it and says, this is my job now.
Unless he just looks absolutely awful in training camp.
Yeah.
I think it would be a mistake not to at least give him the 9 games.
At least some of those 9 games, right? You know, they could do like what they did with Mikko. They can give him 6.
Sure,
and then
whatever, yeah.
Second half of the year, his season finishes up in the WHL, and all right, come on back.
But to not at least give him the opportunity to show what he looks like against proper NHL competition just feels like you're missing an opportunity.
It does, and it also feels like Timmins would be getting punished for being AHL eligible.
It does. It does feel a little bit like that.
Because you're looking at, if you're going to bring Byram in, he's going to leapfrog Timmins, even though Timmins is the more accomplished player at this point.
Yeah, he has a pro season under his belt. That's just reality.
He had a good pro season, and he has NHL games under his belt. And he's got multiple training camps where he has been the star pupil.
He was the Avs' best AHL prospect this season. I pretty handily, I think.
Really?
And that's not a knock on the other guys down there. It's just that Timmins, when he was healthy, was that good for the Eagles. The only other case you can make is Martin Kaut's play in the NHL for a better prospect. So at the AHL level, if he goes back to the AHL, I'm not going to make a huge fit about it as long as he is high on the list for a call-up. But Timmins has already proven something that certainly Byram hasn't, and a lot of guys deeper down the Avs prospect list have not proved at all. So it's a hard conversation again because Byram is going to get a lot of doors open for him based on the player that he's expected to be and where he was drafted and all of that, and it's warranted. Yeah. But if both of these players miss out on games this year, it's both going to be considered failures. The Avs need to find a way to balance it and get both of them NHL games. That I believe.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be easy for them, certainly. And that conversation is going to be long and winding throughout this entire offseason as they manage those roster spots with potential moves of someone like a Zadorov down the line. And it's not clear yet. As soon as a move gets made, if a move gets made, the conversation is going to become a lot more heated on who gets what spot and what to do next. Because right now, you just don't know what that defense is going to look like and what the Avs need. But
yeah, the clearing of the space is really the big question here. Like,
Yep.
if Kevin Connaughton was signed and Ian Cole was a free agent, you would not have this conversation, right? Cole would walk and you would just
easy
set
enough.
and forget. Like,
Right.
okay, this is how this works.
Don't have to think about it.
As it's going to work with the forward core, which will be what we talk about next. But until they make a decision, you know, if they bring back Graves and they bring back Zadorov, then you're realistically wondering, okay, well, when are you going to work these guys into the lineup? Are you just going to go another year like this? And like, depth is a nice thing to have, of course, as we saw during the postseason. You want to have depth, but these guys are a big part of the future, and when you start developing them, you know, there comes a point in time when they're NHL ready, and I think Timmins has shown that he's there.
Yep.
Byram has not, but we think he's close.
Right.
And
he certainly doesn't have anything to prove at the level he's played at. So
that's like the rub with Byram, is that him going back to the WHL is just sort of like, okay, well, he gets a year older.
Yep.
That there's not, you're not really talking about it being much of a development year as so much as it is a stagnant year. It would be like if Newhook went out and had another dominant college hockey season, then went back for his junior season.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, why?
Probably going to get better. He's probably going to fill out a little bit more or whatever. But as far as playing the competition that he needs to be playing against, it's not going to be there.
Right. He was already dominating the WHL. Now he's a year older. He's a year better, blah, 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 blah. He's just going to go do it again. And like, okay, that's fine. If he doesn't, you're not worried about that, because then you would just worry, you wonder about complacency.
Yep. So,
you know, so Byram's in the weird spot with Timmins. You can be like, well, he's your depth.
You go back, he goes back to the AHL and you live with it. And when injuries inevitably happen, he should be pretty much the first guy you look at.
Definitely. And then maybe he just doesn't ever give the job back.
Yeah, sure. Totally. That's kind of how it works for a lot of guys, especially on the defensive side.
But this is their next challenge, is them trying to integrate these guys into the lineup on the fly, and figure it out. Because it's mostly been, you either win a job in training camp and that earns you 6 million call-up chances, like we saw with TJ Tynan.
Yep.
Or you just sort of get buried.
They have to find that middle ground of not burying guys that don't start in the position, essentially.
Right. Like they've got to move away from Jared Bednar being like, oh, I really like this guy in training camp, and that opinion holding up through the first 3 months of the season.
Yeah. Yep.
They need to move away from that, because it's just, you're just getting wasted games with very predictable results.
Yep. 100% agree there when it comes to call-ups, which is something we can dive into more in the third period as we will move into that forward conversation. But Strava Craft Coffee is the CBD-infused coffee that has really changed lives. Another thing you can get down at the DNVR bar, cold brew Strava. If you want to give it a try, come on down and give it one. If you like it, you can always order online, StravaCraftCoffee.com, and get 20% off when you use code DNVR20 at checkout. Or if you really like it and want to order consistently, get signed up for their subscription service, which gets you 20% off every single time you buy, whether it's IBS, migraines, other aches and pains in your joints, you name it, anxiety, it's helped with that too. So give it a try today and see how awesome it is. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm Rudolph.
What the?
AJ's browsing Twitter over here, finding out something.
So they announced the Sean Couturier won the Selke. Yep. I'm just looking at the ballot
and the votes that he got.
Also receiving votes from the Avalanche, a 5th place vote to Gabriel Landeskog.
Okay.
1 5th place. Okay, cool.
Probably deserved a little more than that, but
a single 4th place vote for Nathan MacKinnon.
Look, Nathan MacKinnon had a great defensive year for himself. on the league as a whole, that dude is not winning any Selkies.
Curious to see who put him there. And then finishing 8th with a 2nd place vote, 2 3rd place votes, 4 4th place votes, and 3 5th place votes, finishing 1 spot ahead of Brad Marchand and 1 spot behind Andrei Kopitar, was Val Nichushkin.
Good. I'm glad that he was that high. I wasn't expecting him to get even that many votes.
Same.
So
that's fun.
Yep. Interesting that the Avs had 3 players in there. Certainly expected a few for Val, maybe a few for Landy, but McKinnon in there is a little bit weird.
Yeah, McKinnon getting there are some odd
choices
guys in here. Mitch Marner with the 5th place vote.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Luke Glendening with the 5th place vote. What?
Okay.
It's funny though.
Well, congratulations to Sean Couturier. AJ, I know he was your pick and Hinks's pick as well when we had her on.
Yeah.
So it was his turn. Surprise. Yeah, he's good. He's good at his job. What can you say?
Yeah, he had 117 first place votes, and 2nd place was Bergeron with 21. Ryan O'Reilly got 3rd, which is criminal. Anthony Cirelli got screwed.
Well, a Stanley Cup can hold his tears.
That's true. I bet. I mean, that thing is big enough. It's that bowl is definitely big enough to hold all of his tears.
Yep.
There's no way you can outcry that cup. That would be so many tears.
How dehydrated would you have to be just to fill that thing up? Like, my God.
Well, and what would have had to have happened for you to continue to cry that much?
You win the Stanley Cup and have tears of joy, and then something terrible happens, and you have to cry in sadness too. And even then, it'd be like half full. Let's be honest.
Right? It's just it's so many tears.
Okay. On to the conversation we were going to be having in this 3rd period. Avs have.
Hey, P.S. I forgot to ask you after the show started. Was that a good Charlotte song?
Yeah, it was. I figured. I'm glad people can tell what 8-bit songs I'm playing here.
Scott Hazelwood is correct. Jack Edwards especially could get that thing could fill the Stanley Cup with his tears.
Would it be tears, or would it just be like whiny echoes bouncing around in the bowl?
No, just say something bad about Zdeno Chara. Just try to say something bad about Zdeno Chara, and he could fill it on his own.
All right. I won't argue with that point. Avs trying to earn themselves a Stanley Cup in the near future. Graduates on the forward side. There are 3 realistic ones. Martin Kaut, Shane Bowers, Logan O'Connor. Let's start with Shane Bowers because I think he's pretty clearly 3rd on that list at this point. If only because his primary position is center. And yes, I know the Eagles played him plenty on wing this year, but Kaut and O'Connor both got NHL opportunities this season, and Bowers did not. So Bowers still has something to prove at the next level.
Bowers, I think it's fair to say that he should probably start with the Eagles.
Yeah,
when they're approaching building the roster for next year, I feel like they should be putting Martin Kaut's name in ink. Yeah. And probably Logan O'Connor's name in pencil.
As the 13th or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But then they need to, I think that then you're having Shane Bowers. That guy could still use another year to work his way. I mean, he had a great second half of the season.
Honestly, I think what Bowers should be projected as is kind of exactly the path they gave Logan O'Connor this year, where they gave him plenty of opportunity to be a top 6 player in the AHL. Injuries happened. They eventually called him up. He played well enough to get a handful of games, and Logan O'Connor ended up with 16 games in the regular season this year. I think Bowers should be perfectly on that path. Maybe he plays well enough that, not unlike Timmins, where you get up there and he just earns the NHL spot and doesn't give it up. If that happens, great. You run with it. If it doesn't happen, okay. You can send him back to the AHL and you can continue to develop him. And it becomes a much bigger conversation for him in the 21-22 season, where guys like Matt Calvert become a UFA, and they have to continue to replace these pieces in their bottom six.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at Colorado's cap sheet, the guys who have multiple years on their contracts right now, after this, you're obviously McKinnon and Rantanen. Kadri has 2 years left, and then Donskoy and Calvert have 3 years left.
Comfer.
Yeah, Comfer and Donskoy have 3 years left.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yep.
Like the time, that of the group, Burakovsky will probably get a multi-year deal. Nichushkin and Jost should get 1 year deals, but could get multi-year deals.
You wouldn't expect either of them to get more than 2, though.
Correct. And then, with Calvert and Belmar, I mean, you can't really have the bring them back, re-sign them conversation yet.
You can't have that conversation, but just given the flat cap, given what the Avs should be looking to do as pushing as contenders, it's going to be difficult to bring those guys back.
Yeah, and to be honest, even as much as you love Matt Calvert, the guy has gotten hurt 2 postseasons in a row.
Yep.
And this is with a career of injuries.
You
every single year,
games a year out of him, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, even in a 72 game season, Matt Calvert
played 50
missed 20 games.
Yep.
He's played 82 games exactly once, and it was his first year with the Avs.
And it's the same kind of story. Sure, he brings a lot of energy, but he's a guy who's going to bring you 25 points a year. That right now you're paying him $2.85 million. Can you afford to keep paying them that, or potentially even have to increase his pay a little bit on his next contract?
Nope.
Simple as that, then.
Well, and that's why we're having that's why Matt Nieto is walking. Because $2 million, you can't pay $2 million for your 12th forward. Yeah. You've got to allocate that money elsewhere.
Right. It's as simple as money management. You can't pay a significant portion of your salary cap to the part of your lineup that has the least amount of impact.
Right.
It's just reality.
As much as everybody wants to bag on Toronto, they have the right idea. You pay for talent. You pay for your stars. It just might have gone a little overboard with them.
Yeah, but it's a balancing act, of course. You know, if you overload into 4 guys and then you have 30% of your salary cap to fill out the rest of a roster, you're just as in trouble as the other way around. But
right.
When you have something established like the Avs do, where they already know they can rely on their top guys as is, you're just trying to get value out of the rest of your lineup.
Yeah.
So value, it just comes from ELCs in the NHL. That is the most effective, cost-effective way to build a NHL hockey team. It just is. It's going to be. The entire league seems comfortable keeping it that way going forward.
Yep.
So that's just how you do it.
Yeah, you have young guys. You have Cale Makar making $880,000 this next season.
Yep. Dude.
Okay, well, where are you going to save the $10 million this year? You're saving $10 million. How are you going to spend it? What are you spending it on? Because part of that, that's part of where you can spend $2.85 million on Matt Calvert and $1.8 on Belmar and $4.25 on Ian Cole. Like that's where that money comes from. And then when Cale Makar gets that big money extension,
now that money's gone, or it's got to come from somewhere else.
Right. Then you need to replace that 880 that Cale Makar was making now needs to be the 880 that Martin Kaut is making.
Yep.
And that's how you balance that roster moving forward. And we need to see that we need to start seeing that next year, because this is the beginning of Colorado's cap problems.
Yep. Makar and Landeskog's contracts.
They've got $22 million in space, and it's not going to be nearly enough to do all the things that they're going to want to do. And I think it's going to lead to, if we're going to see a big move, it's probably going to come via trade. I don't think that the free agent market is going to be robust for the Avalanche. It's not really a great fit. We'll get into that maybe tomorrow.
Probably we'll see what we do for Free Skate Friday.
Yeah, we haven't decided on tomorrow's show yet. So, yep. But there are a lot of free agents that you could say, oh, these guys are a good fit. They fill a role. But at what price? And with the uncertainty around Landeskog and Makar, it's very hard right now to project them making a serious foray into the UFA waters.
Yeah, I think there's a chance. We talked about it a little bit before on the show. They either make a big splash or they probably won't do much. And just every step of the way, every time they commit big money to someone, whether that be through trade or through UFA or through signing their own guys, that's something you have to account for with I want to say UFC, but it's ELC. Getting all my acronyms mixed up, which Kaut, Bowers, and O'Connor, sort of O'Connor, he'll be on a very cheap contract in the immediate get done. And then it's about continuing that on with guys like Alex Newhook down the line, with some of their draft picks this year down the line. And that's how you keep a hockey team's window open.
Yep.
It's what every hockey team, once they get there, has been trying to do. Pittsburgh, very good at it for a long time, though they seem to be kind of at the end of that window.
You look at where Chicago did it. They had guys like Chris Versteeg and Dustin Byfuglien and Nick Leddy all on either ELCs or bridge deals. They had so many young guys that were good young players that as soon as it came time for them to get paid, that led to Chicago's downfall. They were never able to recycle the talent in and out. Yep. They tried. They did. Like the Nick Leddy deal was a perfect
attempt
style of a deal. Yeah. You get a top defensive prospect in Ville Pokka and a second round pick. You've given yourself a chance. It just didn't work out. They just misevaluated the guy that they got, and the pick didn't work. So I'm assuming, I actually don't know who they took with that pick.
I couldn't tell you. I don't think they've been particularly successful with their seconds anyway.
The only one I can think of is DeBrincat, and I thought that was their own pick, but I don't. It's not the point.
Yeah.
Point being that this is the beginning of Colorado having to figure out that cycle. Being the young and up and coming team means you get to be the inexpensive team. Now Colorado's they're going to have to be a close to cap team for the foreseeable future. They're going to have to dance around it the way that Washington has every year, where they were still able to get guys like TJ Oshie. They were still able to sign big extensions, but they're going to lose a Holtby. You're gonna take some losses every once in a while, and I think this is really going to be the beginning of it, and this is where Colorado has to start graduating their own internal replacements to make a more cost efficient roster.
Specifically, internal depth replacements.
Yeah,
the Avs have never had a problem graduating guys like Makar, graduating guys right. like a Tyson Jost, the top of the draft, the guys you expect to be NHL players pretty early on. They do that just fine.
The guys who tear up the prospect levels, Bo and Byram, Alex Newhook, like those aren't guys that you're having hard conversations about. Even Connor Timmins was so good in his D+1 that it was like, well, this is an easy decision.
Yep.
It was just bad luck with him. And
Yep.
now it's even more bad luck because
who knows?
Kirby Dach went third instead of Bo and Byram last year. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd be talking about where does Kirby Dach fit into Colorado's lineup.
Yep. I mean, that rabbit hole is, do the Avs even sign Belmar? Who knows? But
yeah.
Either way, it's a never-ending cycle too. The Avs are gonna, in 1 month's time, they're gonna have 6, maybe more, depending on moves, maybe less depending on moves. But they're gonna have a whole slew of new draft picks entering their systems. And if Count does graduate next year, if Logan O'Connor does graduate next year, who's next on the list? Who's coming in the following season? And so on and so forth down the line. It becomes crucial for a hockey team to have a consistent conveyor belt of players coming. And they're not all going to work, and they're not all going to exceed expectations. But when that source of players dries up, the window closes fast. So
yep,
it's an area where the Avs have to go and prove it again. Joe Sakic and this front office has built a quality NHL team, a contending, capable NHL team. Now they have to learn how to keep it there and how to improve it to the point where they win a cup too, of course. But your odds of winning a cup go up a lot if you don't YOLO all in, like we've seen many, many teams over the years go for it when they think they're at the end of their rope. So that's all I got for today, AJ, unless you have any final ELC prospecty graduatey thoughts.
Nope. Excited to get into more prospects that, may or may not become Avs prospects.
It's going to be a fun month.
We delve into the draft. My hat is the Nuggets, the minor.
The old school.
Yeah, the old logo.
Far better than the new one, just saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
the new logo sucks.
Us. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of but it reminds me of the Buffalo hockey puck a little bit too much. But anyway, that's going to do it for us on the day. As always, thank you everyone for listening. Much appreciated, whether that's watching on YouTube, consuming the podcast on whatever podcast listener you use. If you do watch on YouTube, give the video a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. Much appreciated there. But we are out of here for the day. Still figuring out what we'll do tomorrow, but we'll be here chatting with you. So until then, we will see you guys later.